Hey guys, and welcome to another video which I'm Vegan and Frodo. Thank you so much for being again in the channel, and I'm so happy to see you back here again. So today, what are we going to have a video about? About the bikes, and specifically about the tires and tubes that I use.
1, 2, 3, 4.
In my most recent trip through United States, which was about 3,000 k's of cycling non-stop over 2.5, 3 weeks, I have not gotten a single puncture. That, I think, my friends, is incredible, because in my very first tour, as some of you know, my very first tour in Australia, from Brisbane to Sydney, I got like 6 or 7 punctures in one day. Why was that? That was because I got a tire slice. One of my tires sliced, and my tires were incredibly worn out. But as a newbie, I had no idea about that, and I didn't really realize how important the tires actually were, like the thickness of the actual tire. So let's quickly come and have a look at my most recent touring bike, which is this one. The tire that I do use, in fact, this is what has been on my bike since the trip, and since before the trip. I haven't changed it at all. It is, there you go, right there. It's Maxxis Relics. It is 700 by 25 cc, and I run them at about 100 psi. And they're both front and back are exactly the same. If we can have a look how worn out it is. So this is, it's not super duper worn out, but it's reasonably worn out. And there's, like, as you can see, there are a few like little cuts and things in here. So obviously before going on a super duper big ride, I look through this stuff, right, and make sure that there's no bits of glass inside of the tire. So sometimes there is a little cut in your tube, right? But it does not mean that you need to get rid of the actual tube. All you need to do is take out the glass, the piece of glass, and it's gonna be just fine. The tire can last you a while longer. But if you leave that little rock or tiny little piece of glass in your tire, maybe it hasn't caused a puncture just yet, but it might cause a puncture very soon if you just leave it in there, and it needs some pressure, and over time it can just travel through. That is my favorite tire, Maxxis Relics. And if we can have a look at my other bike now as well, you can actually see that I'm running a Maxxis Relics on this as well, and it's also 700 by 25. Now this is like, maybe not quite as one out. This back one is usually the back one for me. Usually the back tire wears out faster than the front one, basically because all of the weight of the things that I'm carrying, like penny bags in the rack or the saddlebag, it is always at the back. So the weight is distributed more onto the back tire. Therefore, it has more weight, and it has more pressure on the ground, more friction, and it just wears out sooner. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just, that's what happens. Like, that's physics, okay? It's not a big deal. There are two different things that I do to kind of try and make a few different things actually, yeah, but we'll start with two that I do to make sure that my tires last me longer. One, as I said previously, well, actually, before I go to the tour, before I do a tour, if my tires look too worn out, I change them now. I swap them, because I don't need to get, flats while I'm on crazy or epic adventure, and I want them to last, right? I want to last the whole trip, and you don't know what kind of conditions you will have on your tour, so you want your tires to last and be dependable. If that would be like your kind of best case scenario. If your tires are not super duper worn out, but you think you might be better off getting a brand new tire for the specific tour that might last a while, for example, or something, you can reuse your old tire that's not overly used. When you get back home, right, no one's gonna take the tire off your hands. It can still just, like, you don't have to chuck it out. You can come back and use it if it has maybe like 1,000 k's left in it or something, or 2,000 k's left in it, and your tour will be 5,000. You can get a new tire, or you can just alternatively bring a brand new tire with you to your trip. So that's to do with tires. Every day I give it a quick look, give it like a little run like that, like you just run and you're just having a look. Just with your thumb every single day when I'm on trip, or every couple of days, to see if there are any new cuts, if you might feel like a little gap in there. If there's a cut, you like obviously look for little rocks, or you look for whatever that made that cut, a little bit of glass or whatever. You try and get it out with like tweezers or a little bit, or like a pin or something, but obviously be very careful. Don't puncture your actual tube before it happens like on its own. Hopefully it doesn't happen to you at all. Right. So another thing that I do is some people I think have done it, but I never knew anyone doing it, so I started doing it. And then when I started going to shops or going to different cyclists about this, I realized that some other people do it as well, is taking your old tube, and I'll insert like a little video about it here, taking an old tube and wrapping your new tube in that. You have your tire, then you have your old tube layer, and then you have your brand new tube which actually gets pumped up. That, I believe, gives an extra layer to your tire, to your tube, and that reduces the chance of the puncture as well. So basically your little whatever that's trying to get through your tire, it needs to get through the tire, through tube number 1, and then already there's tube number 2, right? So it's like a longer transition for it, and it's less likely to get a puncture basically. So that's my number 2, like that's what I do. And number 3 that I do is obviously I use the products that I trust, that I have used a long time. Look, I'm not sponsored for this. This is like legitimately what I've run, and I've been doing cycle tours, you know, for like a year and a half now, and I've done like over 5,500 Ks in Australia. I've done a few thousand Ks in New Zealand. I've done 3,000 Ks in US. So I have done some cycle touring, okay? And with my experience, I have my favorite brand of tires and tubes, and I am going to legitimately show you what is the actual tube that is inside my wheels right now, but I will need to obviously stop recording and just flatten my tire to show you. And my favorite tires, as I said before, are Relexes. So as you would have seen from that video, it took me actually a while to get this tube out of my tire. One, that because the tire is not particularly old, but another reason is because this tube that I've been using is insanely thick. They're these crazy tubes. They're like seriously, they're insanely thick. They're 700 by 28. The brand is Sunlight, and what else have I seen here? Just made in China, Sunlight. But basically what I have learned about these tubes is these are like one of the crazy super duper thick tubes that you can use for a bike, and they are very, very prone to punctures. They're heavier, they would feel heavier on your bike than your regular tubes because the walls are thicker, but because the walls are thicker, like, you're less likely to get a puncture. Yeah? Right. And another thing that I'm going to talk about once I have my tire off my wheel is rim tape. So what is rim tape? Rim tape is just this little bit here that is inside the wheel. It protects your tube from these little gaps that are drilled in the rim because of the spokes. Yeah? So if like you know, you have one over here, but this is a tiny one and made specifically for that. Usually, generally, you have really, really big, like, little gaps here. And when I just bought this bike, I kind of assumed that it's going to be perfectly fine. But in reality, even though brand new bike, this was a brand new bike, the rim tape was shocking. It was not thick enough. It did not cover all of these little holes, the gaps in the rim from the spokes. It was insane. So I ended up getting so many flats in the brand new bike and the brand new like tires and tubes and stuff because of that rim tape. And I have actually had this issue before as well. So let's sum it up. If you're trying and you would like to have less punctures on your tours, and how do you get, you know, thousands and thousands of Ks out of your bike while it's loaded without punctures? One, get the tire that you used to, that you like. My favorite is Maxxis Relics tire. There you go, you can have a look in here. It's 700 by 25 mil cc, and I run it on about 100 psi. This is what I kind of used to, and I like that kind of pressure in my tires. Well, I have also tried Continental Grand Prix, but I actually prefer this tire. I don't know, I just like the way it runs. You might have your favorite tire, it's all good. Number two, if you're gonna run a thin regular tube but you can't get a hold of a really thick one, you can double wrap your tube in your old tube, right? You can cut it out and wrap around it, and it can serve you just a little bit longer and protect your tire a bit better. Alternatively, you can get one of these crazy super duper thick tubes like this brand here, Sunlight, 700 by 20 by 28 to 35, 27 by 1. Where's that? I don't know. But there, you can see the name. I can't really read the bottom one, but the top one is Sunlight, and you can see dimensions there. And number 3, you can say, check your rim tape in here. Make sure that it's completely and totally thick. All the little holes and cuts are covered, and you have no issues. So you have less issues on the road when you're traveling because you want to have less punctures. Now, I would love for you guys to write down your little tips and tricks on how you keep your tires and tubes and all that, how you have as little flats as possible. And if you agree with my tips, if you have your favorite tires, like brands of tires or tubes that you reckon I should check out, like put it down below. We'll, like everyone who is interested and found this video is interested in the subject, they will check your stuff out as well. Thank you so much for everyone who is watching this video. I hope this was helpful, this was informative, and you have learned something new basically. And I wish you all to have less flats so you can do more hills, count less calories, do more hills, do more Ks, and live your passion and have the most incredible, awesome fun on this time on this planet. See you again soon for another video. Bye.